Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anurag. I am the senior software analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Bloomberg Intelligence is Bloomberg's in-house research arm. Part of my work goes to examine and look at mostly the large cap software names that are out there. Everything from Microsoft to Amazon Web Services to Salesforce. And in the last 16 months or so have been fairly interesting in the software space with so much of software spending coming aboard, companies redoing the way they do business. And with that, I think today's panel is going to be very interesting because we want to know what's happening on the public sector in that case. So we have a fair amount of I would say distinguished panelists with us. And now what I'll do is I'll start with a question, and what I would request is before you start off, please introduce yourself and let's dive deep into it. The first and the most important question, I think, for everybody, especially for a lot of us who's working from home and not working from home, is what kind of work model are you going to embrace as you exit the pandemic? And also, what was it before, and how do you think it's going to change going forward? So, Susan, please.
Hi, I'm Susan Kellogg, and I am the Chief Deputy State CIO for North Carolina and also the Chief Services Officer. And our model pre-pandemic was most definitely everyone in the office. We had some telework, but it was minimal, quite frankly. And after the pandemic, I think everything has changed. So we are not expecting a lot of folks to come back to the office. We're still very much a mixture of remote and a hybrid model. We have some folks in the office, but we also have others who are, the majority, quite frankly, who are office workers are working from home. So we'll continue with that. And I think we've learned quite a few lessons about our state citizens as well. They've gone through this, and so we've upped the ante on everyone's technical capability. So I see good things coming out of the pandemic.
Benny?
Hi, my name is Benny Thottam. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of New York, known as FDNY. 80% of our workforce is in the field, so the other 20% was also always in the office. So it was a no for government employees to work from home. This was an opportunity. So 95% of civilian workforce started to work from home immediately after second week of March. So now the mayor has announced that we're coming back. So we started to come back in a hybrid model, 1 day a week and to 2 days a week, and then more days a week. So the COVID experience brought the best out of technology, I should say.
Ervan?
Hello, my name is Irvin Rogers II. I am the state CIO for the great state of Ohio, OHIO. With regards to what my panelists co-panelists have said so far, I agree wholeheartedly. Pre-pandemic, we were traditional. Everyone was in the office. But I think, while we were in the pandemic, we proved that not only could we do it, similar to the private industry, but we were very, very productive. And there are a number of assets that have been continued to be released, which we'll talk about later. So I'm excited about our return. We're in the process of trying to figure out what that's going to look like. My guess is it'd be something more like a hybrid type of a model. So more details to come out of that. We don't want to necessarily get in front of our governor. He's been one of the leading governors out there during this pandemic. And so we want to make sure that we are ready. So from a technology perspective, we've gone through several iterations of what if then types of scenario. So we've got a playbook. We're ready. We brought in some leading experts such as Gartner, et cetera, to try and understand what other countries are doing, those that are ahead of us on the curve, so we can apply those same lessons learned to our playbook and be ready. So, and that looks like my lights just went out. And yes, I'm in the office today. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Russ?
Hi, good morning. I'm Russ Nichols. I'm the Chief Deputy State CIO for State of California. And as you can see, I'm at home today, so we're experiencing all the joys of telework and remote work, both from the home and challenges in the office with the automatic lights going out when we're not moving enough. We're very much in the same boat. Prior to the pandemic, there was conversation around remote work and telework and different mechanisms to provide government services, but there really wasn't much being done. It was very spotty. Our governor has taken a very strong stance on it as we come out of the pandemic. His goal is to have 75% of the state workforce that can telework to continue to telework. And so we are actually reducing physical footprint in our buildings around the state and have already executed some budget reductions to help enhance that process or put that process on the fast track. So our IT organizations are working adamantly or very vigorously trying to set that up, figure out the new policies and procedures that go with that with our labor organizations, and to redefine the state services that we provide so that we can allow that remote workforce to work from where they are.
So, just sticking with this topic, what technologies did you have to implement as soon as, you needed to know that, you were going to go through this massive transition? So what kind of work did you guys do?
I'll
I'm
jump
sorry.
in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't sure who that was directed to.
Oh, anybody. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's open to everybody.
So I'll go ahead and jump in. We were already in progress of moving to a telephony platform that was going to allow us to do the movement that we needed to. So the flexibility that technology brings in the times of when you don't know where the office is going to be, it may be here today, maybe here tomorrow. We had those plans rolled out, so we just sped those up. Most of our employees had laptops, but not all. And so we were busily hunting and getting laptops, and we are in the process as folks are refreshing at this point. We are very focused on getting laptops for that portability. So little things like that you don't really, of course, we never thought this could happen, but those were huge helps. And so I think we were fortunate in North Carolina. We had a lot of things already in place.
So I'll jump in on that as well. In California, we did have a number of things in place, but we had to scale them dramatically. So we had, our finger in the pool for telework, and we'd set up some technology to do virtual desktops or remote access, but we had to vastly expand that, and frankly, implement a lot of the services that go around it to ensure security. So multi-factor authentication was not used consistently across our organizations. So implementing those things, and frankly, scaling some of that security depending on who or where you are. Some of the processes that involve court hearings take a lot more security and privacy controls than something that's just a generic transaction with a typical state entity. So it's not a one size fits all. We had to look at the use cases organization by organization and make sure that we stood up tools that would allow them to be successful in that type of environment. So anything from legislative hearings to, how do I renew my driver's license? All of those processes have to be evaluated.
Yeah, so I'll jump in next. With regards to Ohio, one of the things that I think gave us a head start is that I woke up in the middle of the night with this nightmare that disaster recovery, and so I went in the next day, and my team was like, "Oh man, he's been up since 3:30. We're in for it." And I started whiteboarding out. Okay, do we have this? Do we have that? Do we have this? And so we brought in a whole bunch of industry experts and started talking about our disaster recovery plans. And so that started 6 months before this pandemic started. So it wasn't a matter of trying to figure out, okay, did you update the plan? Is it dusty? Is it, has someone tried it? And in addition to that, we found out gaps where, we didn't have ability for folks to work, remote if we needed to. So we tried it out a couple times. So within 2 weeks, we were able to get 55,000 employees home. And I think part of that was just, sheer luck. I'm not going to say I got like a magic ball and I'm the wise one, but I would say it was, it was luck that helped us to make sure we were ahead of that curve. The other thing is that, we were struggling a little bit with Microsoft Teams adoption. At this point, if I attempted to try and take away Microsoft Teams from anybody, there would be, there would be fights all over the place. Whereas before, I couldn't get them to, talk about this new technology and try it. So our adoption, went through the roof. We did have some other scenarios, as to your earlier point with regards to use cases, where teams didn't necessarily fit. So we had to kind of adapt, especially in the court environment. So it's been an exciting time. And our team here, I call them the Ohio IT Avengers. We've leaned into the pandemic for a better outcome.
So I should chime in also. The story is same with the New York City also. We just have to expand what we already had. So historically, IT folks always worked remotely, not regular hours, but off hours. We had to work off hours all the time. So we had to expand the solutions we already have, including buying additional laptops. Our vendor partners are very helpful to us to deliver even before getting their money. So it was good for our case too.
No, that's good. And how it has changed the services that you provide to your constituents. How have they changed because of this of the pandemic, and because of the technology that you're put in?
So I'll jump in first. Here we have a concept here called Innovate Ohio, that's led by our Lieutenant Governor John Husted. He's also our Chief Innovative Officer. Unfortunate that we have a really good working relationship where we partner together. I take care of the technology, and we meet up, in the middle for the strategic, piece of it, the strategy. And his lofty goal, and that's part of the campaign, was that he wanted to make it so that our citizens never had to go into a government building. That is a lofty goal, especially when you're trying to modernize on the fly in the middle of a pandemic. We didn't hit all A's, all categories. However, I think we reacted very quickly. One of the areas that was kind of a joke here in Ohio was that the governor broke the internet. Our governor wanted to have basically daily press conferences. And so that worked for a little while, where the newscasters were willing to carry that signal, but that was starting to interrupt their daily flow. So we needed to leverage our Ohio channel outlet. Unfortunately, it was only tuned for about 500 users, because that's probably the max that we would get nobody tuned in the state government. Let's just be honest, right? And so but during this pandemic, everybody and their mother wants to know, because it was stay at home. So unfortunately, after 3 days, I knew, working for him for the last 6.5, close to 7 years, that his patients he wants it tomorrow. And so we started partnering on the back end with one of our cloud smart vendors, AWS, and used their streaming services so that we could go from 500 concurrent users to over 240,000 per second. So that gave us the ability to get out there and get the broadcast out, and folks could tune in, get to our coronavirus.ohio.gov website. So that's what I would say to that.
Anyone?
So government started to take, right, even before that, started to take electronic documents and signature, and we started to give more self-services, but COVID made us to do it to another level. For example, in New York City Fire Department provides certificate of fitness to operate certain equipments and devices. So the mayor announced that the test for certificate of fitness for propane tanks was going to be given online. So we had to hustle and make that online test in less than 3 weeks. So innovations like this happen, and then our constituents also embraced it, thankfully.
And I'd say, and I think we all experienced this during the pandemic. More than ever, citizens were really interested in what the government wanted to say. So, Irvin, to kind of your point about the press conferences, it was, we want to hear, we want to, for employment benefits, need to reach out, et cetera. So what we saw was the need and ability to scale rapidly was something that we had to have in place, and particularly with call centers. And it's not just the technology in those cases. You've got to have people who know what they're talking about when they answer the phone, or that's a frustrating experience. I can get to you fast, but I can't get an answer. So, we've done a lot to really focus on that customer journey and the experience of the citizen, and mapping out what those are. We have a group of about 400 citizens that we use to do testing for our nc.gov environment, and make sure that what we're doing is something that's going to work for them. So I think we've had a lot more day-to-day, it's our next door neighbor touching the state government, where maybe not, that wasn't the case before. And everyone wants to know, what is the government doing? How are they helping us? So it's raised our profile and our awareness. So it's been a very positive thing.
I completely agree. I think that focus on the user experience is greatly escalated compared to where it was, a year ago in the way we looked at designing government services. But it's also brought some challenges, and we need to bring some new skill sets and some new tools to the table in order to be able to do that. We've got to fundamentally look at providing services differently. So that people don't have to come stand in the lobby of a state office or something along those lines. How do we meet them where they are, which could be a mobile device, sitting on their couch or sitting in a park when they need a service, and to take out, all of the steps where they have to drive to an office or get to a PC that's sitting on their desk at home or at their office. How do we collapse that process, meet them where they are when they need that service? It really takes some different thinking and processes, and some of those, and I alluded to this a little bit ago, some of those services, when you're applying for benefits, we absolutely have to prove who that person is. And in person, that's much easier when someone can show you a document, a passport, a driver's license, real ID, something along those lines. Doing that in a virtual environment is a much different challenge. And I think a lot of jurisdictions are struggling with that, and trying to quickly navigate that process to bring up a service that a year ago we really either hadn't thought about or was fairly immature.
Yeah, Russ, I mean, what you're mentioning is something that I'm seeing a lot in the commercial space. So I'm going to just again, extend the same question and say, I am interacting with a lot of my, businesses or areas, let's say through a chatbot, through more virtual ways, or I can get more work done, whether it's, closing a house or buying a car, without actually having to step into a dealership or, to a lawyer's office. As you look beyond, your next phase of, I would say, evolution, are you thinking about services where a lot of these will be delivered virtually, or are you still, scaling back on that? So, what other, I would say, emerging technologies are you thinking about as you are, going through this journey?
So absolutely, we're looking at those services. There are some things at this point. For example, if you are applying for a driver's license and you need a driver's test, you need to be in the vehicle sitting next to an evaluator. Maybe that changes a few years down the line, but right now, frankly, you still need to have that personal contact. But the paperwork and all the process that precedes that could be done remotely, so that you come in for the test, execute the test, and then you're gone. But there will be more and more technology. So as we develop these tools that allow us to do it virtually, we can use artificial intelligence or just technology enhancements to make sure that we're meeting folks that have ADA needs, whether it's adaptations on a screen or language conversions or things along those lines. And I think a lot of organizations forget that step up front, and it's a bolt-on as a second step. And so using those tools, we can bring that to bear and start to get into the norm as designing that as a digital transaction first that is adaptive to screen readers or translators or whatever it might be that the consumer needs. And again, it's really focusing on meeting the client where they are in a manner that meets their needs to consume the service.
And I'd say for us,
is an evolution, right? Earlier, IT developed file and retrieval system. Basically, I go to a file cabinet, opened a paper, and then did something with it. So we automated that. Then we applied business processes. on top of that. And with more business processes automation, we can then provide those services directly to our end users, our constituents. Private has been doing it for a long time. Government started slowly, and it will continue. And embracing cloud technologies, it will enable us more to do that. So I think it is, like everyone said here, all the panelists said that it's all going to the right direction, and government is following what private has been doing.
Mhm. And I think some of so we were talking about employment services. We looked at virtual assistants, and a lot of the materials that we had, we didn't have this plethora of digital material for a virtual assistant to learn and work off of, and didn't have the confidence because we hadn't worked with it enough to for that virtual assistant would give the right answer, or let's say not be tomorrow's headline. And one example is we were testing and we said, I've lost my job, and the virtual assistant said, "Oh, that's nice." And no, that's not. That is not an answer we want on the newspaper. And so we have to think of those things as well. That there's the human touch, and we feel very comfortable with that person is going to be able to understand the situation and respond appropriately. Can the technology? And that's just going to take us working in non-emergency situations more and more. The other thing was the process automation components. We have some of these legacy systems. They're going to be there. We're not going to be able to get rid of these very large systems overnight. And I think all states are working towards that digital transformation, if you will. But when you've got these systems that a person to train someone, so for instance, in the call centers, they're going from this screen to this screen. And if we can automate some of between these large systems and some of these owners' processes, that's going to speed it up. Before, we didn't have a good business case for doing the work to get to that automation. This is the business case of all business cases, because no one wants to go through this again and be on the negative end of we can't answer calls fast enough. We've got people frustrated because they've been on hold for 8 hours and can't get through. So I think we will be doing a lot of work in the next few years to overcome some of these things in the interim. So not just replacing systems, but also how do we get the systems that we have today working better so that we can serve the citizens faster.
No, that's a great answer. In fact, Betty said something just now in terms of cloud, and that really is the one theme that's resonating so well with a lot of the companies that we cover. And from that context, is that something that are you going to increase your, let's say, budgets by a little bit going forward, or is it going to be quite a bit? Like how do we think about how the governments are going to evolve when it comes to cloud adoption or digital transformation?
So I'll take this one with regard, or I'll start it. With regards to the stuff that we're doing here in Ohio, I remember my first interview that I did at one of the NASCIO, National Association of State CIO conferences. And I was like, I'm going to stand on Cloud Smart. Well, I hadn't quite figured out it, but it's one of the best things that put my money on. We've worked on it for the last 2.5 years, and it is proven to be one of our best assets, because ultimately it gets back to that NASCIO model of this as a CIO, as a broker. I call it CIO cloud broker, in which we're setting up, from a cloud architect perspective, we are concentrating those at the center, making sure that infrastructure is set up appropriately. I mean, it's one thing to get into the cloud, but if you don't set it up right, oh my gosh, I mean, it's all it takes is a credit card to get it set up. But you have to make sure that you begin with security in mind so that you have a better product in the very end. And that's what our Cloud Smart initiative enables the agency, so that they can take it from the application layer and deliver, and not have to worry about that or replicate those skill sets with regards to all over the enterprise. So, as new projects need to get spun up, whether it's, we've got approximately 5 major vendors everywhere from Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google just recently got added on, Oracle, and Salesforce. I mean, what vendor is not going cloud, to your point? I mean, you've got to get in the game. If you don't get in the game, you're going to get left behind. I just want to touch back on the previous question. From an AI standpoint, we have several bots that we have enabled for those, repetitive types of requests, right? To the point that was made earlier, we don't necessarily want to continue to, have the computer, answer inappropriately. So we assign various tasks because I think you still need, to Susan's point, that human touch. If not, you could, have it respond the inappropriate way. But yes, cloud is the future, and that's where many of the applications are going. Cloud, software as a service.
So Anurag was talking about budget and what budget you're allocating for future development or automation. New York City Comptroller and New York City's budget office gave us a big win in embracing cloud technologies by allowing us to capitalize cloud services. So in addition to consume application as a service over the cloud, we are also consuming platform and infrastructure services, so we could deliver our own services directly to our end users or our own employees. So New York City Fire Department has been using that for some time, but making it capital eligible, it will empower us more and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're doing the same thing. We're very fortunate that our legislature, as well as our organization, saw cloud as being something that was critical. So we have a cloud broker, and we have a pretty robust cloud security strategy that and again, it went from here are the components, we have the pieces, to, okay, we're going to use this a lot in the last year. And so we've seen a great deal of increase there. I think part of what we've got to do is move and migrate other things that are on-prem to the cloud and continue to leverage this. There's just a lot of benefits. And again, I think we got through some of the scary part in the past year, where going so high technology, going remote, going to the cloud, these are all things they've been proven out now. So we can move beyond that. And as technologists, that's a great place to be, because I think all of us have probably been pushing that stone up the hill a little bit over the years. So to have it play out so nicely, now, wouldn't want to go through that again. Let's be clear. I'm not advocating another. But there have been benefits. So, through the crisis, I think the IT organizations in the states have really risen to the challenge and to the needs of the state nicely.
Right. I agree with everything that's been said, and I like the terminology of cloud smart. A lot of organizations have gone for cloud first or cloud only, and it's not always the right answer. And so, to have an evaluation in there, but even beyond the technology layer, a piece that I think we're all realizing we struggle with, back to your question on budgets and how things are approved, saying that we're going to go to a cloud provider because that's the best solution is only part of the answer. If it takes us 18 months to get there because of budget cycles or, bureaucracy and project approvals and things like that, you're losing some of the efficiency of going to that platform that already exists. So the technology absolutely is an accelerant that helps with that, but then we've got to look inwardly and make sure that we've got the skill sets and the processes that support making that transition, so that we're basically not jumping off a cliff as we try to do it.
No, that's excellent. All right, so we got about 6 minutes left. Hoping to get one last question in for all of you. What is your greatest success story over the last year? So if you mind, wrapping that up in a minute and a half each, that would be good, please. Susan?
Okay, I'll jump in. There's been a lot, I have to say. The thing that I am absolutely the proudest of is how we as our organization, like many state, sorry, I've got a fan over here. He's, but with us being a central organization and we serve all the agencies across the state of North Carolina, it was our moment to shine and to. So when the state said we're going home, we did. We were there at every turn, doing everything we could to get people systems, to get them home, to get them set up, to get them trained. To again, unemployment was a early story as folks were in, and so we spent the year going from this situation to this situation to this situation. And in each case, we were able to really be that partner that we have said and begged to be, quite frankly, over the years. And so it was very helpful for us to be able to demonstrate that. And our folks rose to the occasion. There was no doubt about it. There was no, I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about this. It was, what can we do? And that has continued as we went through the vaccine rollout. It was the same thing. That was a huge list for our Health and Human Services organization. And we did everything to be there for them. And as I called, we kind of lurked on the edges to make sure that they had all the components and pieces that they needed to, from a technology standpoint, to get the vaccine out to our neighbors and ourselves.
Yeah, to Susan's point, I was high-fiving you. I was being your hype man in the background.
That's it. There you go. That wasn't the light.
The lights. It's a funny thing to be back in the office. With regards to, some of the things I'm most proud of, definitely I would say our Innovate Ohio platform, our ability to provide statistics, data analytics, for the average citizen, all the way to those that are wanting to be more technical in nature, being able to download the information. One of our major releases during a pandemic is our data portal. I'm not sure, companies, organizations that are releasing that kind of, materials and assets to the public, but we released it in December of 2020, and it's gotten rave reviews where folks are able to go in securely, following all security protocols and regulations, not going to answer requests for information data sets. We have over 220 data sets that are there that people can go in and request. So I'll pass the mic.
I have to say that I'm so proud of my IT organization, my IT staff, for working, like I mentioned before, in different hours and making sure that our assets are secured. And then we had to, our IT helped us, our application development team, and also my operations team. They had to make technology available so people can work from home. And also we built an application in less than 2 weeks to register and schedule for vaccines, because the fire department administered vaccines for our staff, families, retirees. So we built our own application for that. I also need to thank my leadership for giving us the courage and freedom to go on and do the needed to provide support for all our employees. So it's always been great to work for fire department.
I think across the entire technology community, we got a real lesson in disaster recovery that maybe we had planned for, but nobody anticipated it being this big or this long. We looked at those events as much more temporary than they turned out to be. And so that adaptation, that willingness to just step into the fire and find a solution demonstrates a lot of resolution that we didn't know about. And I think one of the pieces that we probably all had to figure out is how we bring in our partners and our supporting vendors quickly to help solve those problems. Our normal bureaucratic procurement processes are very, very long and drawn out, and we had to figure out how to do things in days, not weeks or months. And I think we're all very successful with that. I'm very proud of what we've done across all of our departments and our centralized department to pull that off.
No, that's excellent. I mean, from our side, as I see, what's happening across the landscape, it's been a massive uptick in, technology embracement, whether it's, as you said, Microsoft Team or AWS or Google or any of these other companies that are providing not just communication services, but, commerce services. And I'm truly happy to hear everything that you have said, because I know down the road, my life is going to be a lot easier, whether it's to renew a license or to pay any bills or to reach out to any of the government organizations to get any data. And I think that's really, I think the biggest silver lining of all of this is that we're going to be far more digital down the road. So with that, thanks everybody for their time, and it's been absolutely great to talk to all of you.